I was invited yesterday onto a meeting that was being taken place on Zoom with a whole bunch of people connected with abundance food. And it was about people who were actually out there growing stuff, people who'd formed groups and communities, or other people who'd been in the farming industry, perhaps had retired, people who had knowledge of how to develop soil. It was absolutely fascinating. It was very kind of them to invite me because I'm absolutely on board with trying to promote the concept. As you know, anybody who's watched my videos, in promoting that we must go out and grow our foods, that we mustn't rely on big supermarkets, on big food, on the industrialization of farming. And it was fascinating listening to the stories, how a young couple, I think they were in Essex, had a few acres of land and they were building up their business. They were working out how to grow things. They were learning how to get plants to come out of the ground organically as possible, or even, as the new term seems to be, beyond organic. And that was fascinating because at the end of the day, organic is just a label, isn't it? It's a label, and you have to pay for, I don't know whether it's a license or you pay for a stamp or something, some proof of authority. Well, why should you have to pay for that? I was listening to one gentleman who was saying, but it's just a label. If we just go beyond organic and we just grow in a most natural way and the most healthy way without putting any pesticides, insecticides, herbicides and fungicides and all these things that you might want to shove on, which are making people ill and of course is devastating to the countryside in terms of all the pollinators and the mammals and all the other wildlife, then you don't need those sort of labels. We just get on and do it. And I was so impressed to watch all these different people and listening to their struggles. Of course, financial problems is one of the things, because it's all very well just clubbing together and buying a piece of land, but you need the equipment to be able to then do stuff with the land and grow stuff. But there are many different new techniques that have been developed based on very much the old way of doing things that has been changed during the Industrial Revolution in order to sell more products and to sell more machinery and to get farmers to be more industrialized, and such techniques as no dig, which has been around for a long time. So I was really encouraged to see all these people, and why I'm mentioning it here is because we're now thinking of solutions. We know all the problems. We know that the cabal and all these one government monsters want to try and divert us from humanity, turn us into robots with their digital IDs and their central bank digital currency, their sexualization of children in the schools, and the net zero nonsense surrounding us with the electromagnetic fields which are damaging us and poisoning the water, the chemtrails. We know all these problems. We know all of that's going on. And we realise that the governments are just puppets now in order to put forward all these dictates. We know all of that. And we're looking at the solutions. We're growing up. We're not being like children having to ask permission all the time and having handouts. We're saying, no, 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 we are responsible for ourselves. And so it was encouraging on this Zoom call to be able to communicate and watch and listen to all these amazing people all around the country doing things. They've got up, they've formed their little communities, and they're getting back to the old ways. And the central part for me, the message was the fact that not only are they doing it and they're getting on and they're working out the problems for themselves, but they're being independent and yet at the same time part of a community, an alternative community to the corporation type of community, which has been dehumanizing us all the time. And as I was watching that, I was thinking also, you know, yesterday I mentioned that we need to, in effect, boycott the supermarkets, because if the supermarkets are selling us substandard food at ridiculously low prices to get us in and make us feel that it's useful, but actually it's highly processed food with no minerals and no vitamins and no actual value to our body. And in fact, there could be, and probably is, a number of extra chemicals which are no good for for us. And the fruit and veg, for example, has been grown to such a point that it's stored in fridges, it's travelled all around the world, and it's on its last legs, and yet it's now being covered with a product to make it look just as nice and shiny, even though it's 3 or 4 weeks older than it would normally have rotted. And that again is deceiving us to making us think that it's got something of value in, when of course it hasn't. And the whole process then makes you ill. You end up going to your doctor and getting on pills, and then those pills are not as good as perhaps they ought to be, and then those pills keep you going back to the doctor, and so you have this cycle. And now of course we've realized the solution is to break that cycle and no longer go to those supermarkets and places that are selling you this substandard food that's no good for us, that we need to return to the old idea. And I know, you know, progressive society and everything, but it's shown us that that experiment has not been great, following just for the sake of convenience and big industry. We go back to the old idea of smaller, independent, wholesome shops, wholesome businesses that want to serve, that want to source real food, real products, real things, that they know about the product. It's not just some spotty teenager who's gone in and is being paid on a crap wage to sort of push as much as you can, or indeed now these app type shops where there's no cash and no private sale, and everything that you transact is done on your phone and therefore is tracked and watched and surveilled, and indeed you have cameras everywhere. Who wants that sort of dehumanized lifestyle? No, I think, and it's only my opinion of course, and you may disagree with me, and you're very welcome to disagree. You may want to stay in that dehumanized world in which you don't speak to another human, you don't talk to somebody who knows that product, who has sourced the product or has manufactured that product in a more wholesome and honourable way. It might be a bit more pricey, but you're supporting perhaps a small, tight-knit community or a family-run business. And so now I'm looking for products that are not in the supermarket. So I'll go to somewhere like the Kent and Sussex Tea Company. I'm just name dropping that because I actually use them, and we buy our teas now from there, and it's actually very nice. I know Richard Smith, who runs the place, and I've been in contact with him for years. And there's lots of these smaller independent shops that desperately need our support, and they're wholesome. They're made there, they know their product, they want to serve, they want that sense of humanity. And so what I really am calling for now, excuse me, is if there is anybody who knows or is able to set up a web page that can list all these small businesses, all these independent businesses, so that you and I, the consumer, can go, do you know what, I'm not going to go to the supermarket and just pick off those big corporate brands all the time, which have been massively manufactured in a huge amount. And where does that money go? Is the money staying in the local economy? Is the money staying within those people, those small independent people, or is it being sucked overseas into other big corporation bank accounts? No, I don't want to spend my money there. I want to give my money to those people who are doing good products, like the farm shops, the small independent farm shops that we visit for our fruit and veg, like the tea company I mentioned, and a host of other companies, these small independent companies. I don't mind having to buy them online, that's not a problem, but I don't really want to have to go to these very famous online retailers, one that's named after a famous large river beginning with the letter A. I mean, they do a good job and everything, but they're a big corporation, and where does the money go, and is it going into the local economy? So if there's anybody who knows if there's an independent web page in which lists these shops, so if I want bars of soap, I can go to this one web page and go, I need some bars of soap, I need good quality toothpaste, I want my tea and coffee, I want some towels and various things. Somewhere that can list all the things that we need on an everyday basis that you might ordinarily buy in a supermarket. But I want to turn my back on those supermarkets, and I want to deal with those companies who are genuine, who are small, and who need to thrive, because now it is about us being independent from the authority, but being a community at the same time. And if there are ways of meeting these people and actually going there, great, in our community, and I support that wholeheartedly. But if I have to buy from a company that's 20 or 30 miles away, then but they're an independent company, I'll do that too, because slowly, by investing in these companies, we return to that smaller community-based, where the money stays within that community and is helping one another, other people like you and me, rather than being siphoned off into the shares of large corporations and those people who are running them, which eventually ends up in the banks of those tyrants who are pushing down the horrors that we've seen in the last few months. So that's what I'm calling out for. And if anybody can help and we can develop that, then let's go for it, because now is the time to support the independent businesses, those sole traders, those small family businesses, those people that need our help and are being penalised by the government. Now is the time to bring back the old way that has served us for generation after generation and that was wholesome and honourable.